Okay, Apollonian Germ. This is the last normal video that I make for you, in which I bring you theoretical explanations of what I have understood. And when or if you stumble upon this video, my instruction is please watch the playlist Apollonian Germ on this channel and trust your own judgment. What you identify as a you, I will let you judge me. I am a process, so yeah. I will give you a theoretical lecture on modern geopolitics. I've already made a video about this, but I will actualize. Hopefully this is clear. I explain what is on this board. In the modern world, the modern Western world, but the modern world at large, the symbol of evil, the embodiment of evil, the standard of evil in our consciousness. Here I speak as a Westerner, as a white Westerner, because I have different level of selves. I've made this in other video, the singular, the particular, the universal. Here I speak as a Westerner. In our view, the image of evil is the white, heterosexual, German nationalist male, namely Adolf Hitler. That's the embodiment of evil for the West in today's world. Although Hitler was an Austrian, but he was a German nationalist. And here already my my Hegelian mind, I guess, comes into play, because these are categories which can be discussed in the sense that, let us take German. There are various levels of German category. There are German citizens who can be of all races. There are black Germans, Arab Germans, Asian Germans, but we understand that when we say German, we mean real German. And what is a real German? I have made videos about the logic of being and the logic of the essence. It is a German who is in adequation with its own concept. And even if we consider that a German is or has to be a white German, even within the white German populations, there are various degrees, which are quantitative measure of German identity. The southern German and the northern German are ethnically slightly different. The northern German are real Germanic, Nordic Europeans, not all of them, but mostly, whereas in the south they are partly Nordic, Western, a little bit of Slavic, a little bit of Alpine, so it's different. And the National Socialists already knew this, so there is no ethnic purity or racial purity among the white German population. But here I talk about German as ethnically white and tied to blood and soil, so to speak. So evil in our world is the white heterosexual German nationalist male. And this is the Platonic idea of evil. And there are various degrees of evil, and the more you participate into the idea, here hopefully you are familiar with Plato's philosophy, the more you get closer to evil. And the further away you are from this idea, because this is the standard of evil, and it is also the standard of good. So the further you get away from this standard, the more you are good. And here I illustrate all the various levels. Here we have the white heterosexual American nationalist male. This is the second closest thing to evil. In this sphere you have people like Jared Taylor, Richard Spencer, Andrew Anglin, David Duke, and I wrote homosexual for someone like Greg Johnson. Greg Johnson is pretty evil because he's white. He's homosexual, so he's not heterosexual, so that could be worse. He's American, he's nationalist, and he's a male. But then again, here you have a problem with the categories, because American here, a white nationalist, an American white nationalist, he's American from the point of view of citizenship, so in the realm of objective spirit, but from an ethnic point of view, he can be Germanic or German or Dutch or English or Scandinavian, or a mixture of all this. For you, Michael, I'm making this video for you, but for everyone, you are a white, heterosexual, American, nationalist male, but you participate in the German category because your ancestors are Germanic. So you are in between this. Here, you have a white, heterosexual, homosexual, English patriot male. Patriotism is less evil than nationalism, because nationalism is imperialist, whereas patriotism, they try to say that they are not, they want to defend their country. The patriots, the nationalists want to conquer. So here in this sphere, you have someone like Douglas Murray, who makes videos about the war on the West. Douglas Murray, he's pretty evil according to the standards because he's white. He's homosexual, so he's not a heterosexual. He's English, that could be worse. He could be German, but he's English. He's a patriot, he's not a nationalist, and he's a male. So here you have the alt-right and the white nationalist movement. Here you have someone like Douglas Murray. And here, for instance, in the lower level, you have someone like Jordan Peterson. Peterson is white, he's heterosexual, he's Canadian. I'm not sure that he's a Canadian patriot, he's more of a Western conservative, so to speak. So patriot, conservative, Western, whatever, male. So Jordan Peterson, according to the standards set in the modern West, he's pretty evil, but there is much worse than Peterson, and he's still relatively good. And I will, here in these spheres, I have not written all the nationalities, but here you have the Germanic archetype, and here in these spheres you have all the northwestern, mostly Germanic nations. So I could have added Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the Netherlands, the Scandinavian countries, etc., because these are northwestern Europeans who are of Germanic blood. And here, I will illustrate. Here you have a white, here is the line of someone like Angela Merkel. Hopefully you can see. We have a white, heterosexual, German, globalist female, and Angela Merkel is considered to be a figure of goodness because she welcomed migrants into Germany. She's progressive, although she's a conservative, but she adopts progressive policies. She's considered to be the redemption of the German soul because she invites non-whites into Germany and into Europe. So here we have Merkel. She's a globalist. She has most of the categories of evil, but because she's not a nationalist but a globalist and not a male but a female, she's considered to be good. So that's why Angela Merkel is considered in our world to be a symbol of goodness, because she welcomed migrants into Germany and into Europe. Here we have someone like Obama. Obama is a mixed race, heterosexual, American, globalist male, and Obama is considered to be the embodiment of goodness. This is Christ made present on earth. He brings redemption to white Americans for the history of slavery. So Barack Obama is considered to be a figure of goodness and peace, although his mandate, he caused many conflicts in the Middle East, but everything has been forgiven to Obama because he's partly black and a globalist, and he's a symbol of redemption for whites. Whites were joyful and they felt, oh, we have found our savior because he removes the guilt from black slavery in the US and in the world at large for colonialism and stuff. But here's the logic. The problem for Obama is that he's mixed race. He's partly white, partly black. So he participates into the logic of evil because his mother is white. So he has something in common with the symbol of evil because he's white. And America is a country of immigrants, etc. But the problem, there are people who say that Obama is not really that good because he has white blood. He should have been totally black in order to represent black America. There are blacks who think that way. That's pretty twisted, but that's Hegelian logic. Here I made a video about quantum physics and queer theory. I will put the link again in this video. The Iraqi queer person, male or female person, of British citizenship, who was a cosmopolitan and a globalist, probably, and a Muslim, and a transgender person. It seems in these spheres of white nationalism, of various ethnicities, it seems to be the symbol of decadence, insanity, globalist madness, but I will talk about this later. And here, in the view of these spheres, the white nationalist, the symbol of evil, so here they, the northwestern whites, they are the embodiment of evil for everyone else in the Western world. And in their view, because they do not think of themselves as being evil, they think that evil is outside of them, they envision that evil for them is partly someone like Merkel or Obama and the globalist, and this is the result of what they call evil. But for them, the evil is the Jewish or the Jew heterosexual, international, globalist, male or female. Here you have Barbara Specter, and here you have what in the right-wing spheres they call the banking elites. So from this perspective, mostly, Northern American white nationalism, evil is here, the banking elites, and evil is responsible for causing all this. And now I will talk about the conflict in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia. Here we have the sphere of whites who are not northern western whites. They are whites, but in the view of the hardcore nationalists, they are some sort of second-class whites, because in this view, this is the Nordic whites, although there are contradictions, because they say uniting Nordic whites will not be enough, we have to unite all whites. That's how people think in these spheres. But here we have the non-Nordic, non-Western whites. So you can include Eastern Europe, but also Southern America, Argentinians, Uruguayans, Southern Europe, you can include Spanish, Italians, the Balkans, etc., where they are whites, but they are partly mixed race here. So what is happening, what has been happening for more than 2 months in Ukraine, is that you have white heterosexual Ukraine nationalists or patriots, males, killing white, mostly heterosexual Russian patriots or nationalists, males. So you have white males of Ukrainian and Russian nationality killing one another, and those people in the sphere of white identity, they think that they, the elites, are responsible for the conflict. But here is where things become Hegelian, although they have always been Hegelian. The reason why these people, the Ukrainians, they think that they fight to preserve the freedom and the independence of Ukraine. And the purpose of the leader of Ukraine, Zelensky, is to join the European Union. I will talk about this later. And in the view of the Russians, in the view of Putin, the official discourse is that the war between Russians and Ukrainians is to prevent the rise or the development of national socialism in Ukraine. So national socialism is kind of tied with this. So people in the West, they accuse Putin of being a white Russian heterosexual imperialist male. So he participates in the idea of evil. But the problem is that from the perspective of these people, Putin was the savior because he's a masculine white figure. But now this savior turns into a problem because he attacks other whites. So I will now take the encyclopedia to explain, because you have to understand this idea, Michael. Where's the encyclopedia? Yeah. The European Union and the Western world at large. When I mean Western world, I mean Western Europe, everything westward of Poland, Western Northern Europe. It's kind of different for Spain and Italy, but it's France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Scandinavia, the British Isles, Britain, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. The entire purpose of all the institutions of these countries in the Western world, there's one purpose, is to bring about the demographic replacement of whites. People who are red-pilled know this. But here I ask you to think in terms of categories, most notably the categories of objective spirit, law, contract, property, morality, good and evil, ethical life, family, civic society, the system of needs, that which we call economics, the administration of justice, the state, we could add the media, technology, internal legislation, the constitution and the laws within the country, geopolitics, external law and history, and also the realm of absolute spirit, art, religion and philosophy. In the Western world, all these modes of human consciousness, all these institutions in the objective and absolute, in the realm of objective and absolute spirit, are designed with the purpose of, in the long run, replacing whites. For instance, family, abortion, gay marriage, they are promoted because it decreases white birth rates. The kind of economic system, it is built so that whites with high income, a high IQ, will have less children and will have an incentive to have less children and more hedonistic pleasures, so that the most intelligent do not reproduce, so that the birth rate decreases. The justice system, with the laws which are being enacted to prevent free speech or to prevent freedom of association or to prevent certain right-wing political groups, it's done with the same purpose. The banking system, the financial system, the educational system, they are built and designed to teach still predominantly white kids that white history is evil, the white race is evil, colonialism, slavery, the Holocaust, etc., etc. In the realm of art, religion, white religion, whether it's paganism or Christianity, is being attacked as being some sort of useless, dangerous, nonsense. Art, traditional classical Western art is not promoted. We promote in the West more kind of what people would call degenerate forms of art. Philosophy, with the deconstructionist, traditional classical Western metaphysics has been deconstructed. And no one today in the West believes in the notion of truth. They believe it's a construct, etc., etc. All the various levels of legislation, etc. So the entire Western world is built with the sole purpose of replacing demographically white people. And here I will illustrate. Here is a very simple view. I don't believe in this chronology, but let us assume. Here's the 20th century, the 21st century, and potentially the 22nd century, which will not happen, but that's another story. In 1945, all white countries were almost completely white, except blacks in America, a few minorities, Japanese, etc., a few minorities in some, in England probably, but most what we call white countries, Western countries, they were populated mostly by whites, with the exception, native Australians in Australia, etc., the natives in New Zealand. But with these minorities, with the exception of these minorities, all the white countries of Western Europe and the Western Hemisphere were populated by whites. And if the trends that I have just mentioned continue without a major change, by the year 2100 or 2110, so in 80 years or 100 years, there won't be any white people nowhere on Earth. Maybe a few in Russia, in Iceland, and in a few isolated places in South America, but basically there won't be any white country left. And here we stand here in this chronological perspective in the 21st century, and we have witnessed a decline in demographics, which is caused and being the manifestation of a decline in all the realm of culture, an objective spirit, a decline in confidence, in morality. Here I speak as a white, we believed that we are guilty of all the sins, so that we have to replace ourselves because we are guilty. That's the official narrative. So we are standing in this position in time and in history, and this decline, I will show the picture again. I could have added that here it's 1945 symbolically, but actually it's in the 1960s that the process of moral decline and moral lack of confidence and the demographic replacement started really. And we have been, in the past decades, the official story says, we have been standing here, namely becoming aware that we are going from an all white, not only all white countries were white, but white countries controlled basically the entire world, almost, through the British Empire, the French colonial empire, American power, with colonies, and the Northern America dominated Southern America, the white countries dominated parts of Asia, etc., etc. So not only did whites populated completely their own countries, but they dominated non-white countries as well. And we are standing in this moment of being aware of the decline. And all the figures of consciousness that we see in the West on the conservative right wing. I take my slate again. People like Peterson and Douglas Murray. They speak about this, but they do not say that the decline started in 1945, because if they said so, they would be accused of being in league with the bad guys, so to speak. So they try to invent reasons. They say, yeah, it's the left, it's the cultural Marxism, it's a decline of moral values. They do not speak the truth, so to speak. So but the truth is not that's a Hegelian view. The truth is not a stage, it's a process. So they are not lying, but they are not speaking the whole truth. But that's not their purpose, because there are those who speak a higher level of truth, and they say they blame this decline on the banking elites. But here is where things become really complicated, because here you have to watch my other videos. I will not go into the full explanation, but what I discovered in my intellectual path is that I started from this path of Merkel and Obama being the good guys. I had no consciousness, and I climbed up the path until I found myself here, and I was in opposition to them, so to speak. But then I realized, the higher I climbed, I realized that the real emanation or manifestation or the real truth of German nationalism is German philosophy, German speculative philosophy, German metaphysics. So the real German is partly ethnically German, but he's spiritually German. And German nationalism, the highest peak, so to speak, of German nationalism would be the philosophy of Hegel. Not because Hegel was, so to speak, a German in the official narrative, but because the culmination, the highest point of German brilliance, I would say, is German philosophy. But here comes the problem that I have been trying to explain in most of my videos. German philosophy is not just German, it is a philosophy which conceptualizes the totality of being. And within the totality of being, there are, of course, non-Germans. Because if there were only Germans, that would be difficult. So German philosophy is not just German, it is also the opposite of German philosophy. And the philosophy which contains itself and its own opposite in the full process of the development of the opposites and the reunification of what has been separated is typically German thought. You can find this in Meister Eckhart, Jakob Böhm, Schelling, Fichte, Hegel, Leibniz kind of partly also. So what I discovered is that the highest triumph of German thought is not to read philosophy book among Germans and say, oh, we are brilliant as a people. It's to conquer intellectually the entire realm of being, to conquer in thought everything. This is German philosophy, not to think about Germany, but to think about the entire universe, the essence of the universe, the essence of God, the essence of man. This is German philosophy. So here that's really complicated because it's truth level 99, if you will, and that's very difficult to communicate. But I made a video about your reaction to this Iraqi, queer, British, cosmopolitan, Muslim, transgender person who talks about quantum physics. That's one of my previous videos. From this perspective, it seems that this is the product of the manipulations of these, and this is the symbol of Western decadence. That's a very simplified view, because when you enter the highest spheres of German speculation, you realize that this is the manifestation of typically German philosophy, because it's an attempt to transcend the categories. So I made videos about this queer, quantum physicist, Muslim, transgender person. This is the pure reflection. This is typically Hegelian, and I'm not joking. This is Hegelian perfection. And Hegel is the pinnacle of German thought, but because it is, here's really difficult to explain. Hegel is not the German philosopher. Hegel is a mode of thinking which includes within itself its own opposite. And here I have to use a book that I discovered because of you, Hegel and the Hermetic tradition. I read about Jakob Böhm. God is moved by the desire to reveal himself to himself. But this self-revelation is psychologically impossible unless an other stands opposed to him. No thing can be revealed to itself without opposition. For if there is nothing that opposes it, then it always goes out of itself and never returns into itself again. If you have no opposition, you extend indefinitely and you never come back into yourself. The other is necessary for God's self-consciousness. This other limits God. By othering, God limits himself, giving himself discernible boundaries. This is a typically German view. So, what I am trying to share is that these people, white nationalists, they are becoming conscious of themselves and of their identity because there is something which opposes their identity, namely non-white immigration and leftist ideology, globalism, etc. But it is only by opposing this that they become conscious of who they are. And they think, I have thought this also, they think that they, the banking elites, are trying to negate them, which in the realm of ordinary consciousness is true, but in the highest level of metaphysical speculation, it is God, who brings forth an other, and the other can only come from God himself, because God has no other. So God creates his own other, and by being confronted by an other that God does not recognize as an other, God is forced to question his own identity. What am I? Who am I? What is the world? And God reconstructs his own identity by recognizing himself into the other. And I say in many of my videos, in August 2018, I had the experience of reason, namely of identifying myself with God, but it's not something that happens once and then you forget. It happened and I forgot, but it's not, I am God for 15 seconds and then I resume business as usual. Once you become God forever, so to speak. So, how should I explain this? God is partly Hegelian, if I might say, and from the perspective of God, this Iraqi, queer, British, cosmopolitan, Muslim trance, this is a pure reflection of God. This is genius. This is, when I discovered this person, thanks to your video, I must be honest with myself and with God, and when I think correctly they coincide. I burst into laughter, but not to mock the person. It was a laughter of joy. I was joyful, and I was so happy, and I wanted to share my love for this queer person because he or she is a brilliant reflection of God. This is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, and what has enabled me to see this Iraqi queer theoretical physicist who is much more knowledgeable and intelligent about quantum physics than most of the people in these spheres. If you stumble upon this with no consciousness at all, you might think this is comical, you might laugh, this is stupid, this is degeneracy, whatever. But when you enter this realm, you understand this, and only German thought, only the process of elevating yourself in the realm of German thought by going through these stages enable you to understand this and to understand the brilliance of this. And I will explain. From this perspective, which is the real perspective, from the point of view of God, these people, the banking elites, which are considered to be evil by this level, the opposition here is between evil and good. So, in the modern Western consciousness, this, symbolized by the figure of Adolf Hitler, is evil, and the Jews who are globalists, they are good, because they promote tolerance, democracy, feminism, open borders, etc., etc. So they are considered to be the good guys when people are aware of them, and if they are not aware of them, people like Obama and Merkel, they are considered to be the good guys. It is only from this perspective that they are considered to be the bad guys. But this perspective, everyone else thinks that they are evil. So here is evil, here is good. But from this perspective, here is good, here is evil. And from the perspective of God, which I am trying to share, I will read the book again. A transcendent God is merely a dark, inchoate will for self-revelation, which Böhm calls the Urgrund, or the Abgrund, the abyss. At this level, it's not God, it's the deity. There is no God, it's the divine Urgrund. And this is nothing, so to speak. Then if I say this is nothing, this is contradictory. But here I will not go into the dialectical subtleties. Let's say nothing, the void, the abyss. And out of this abyss emerged a will to find something. Nothing wanted to become something. But here I speak in ordinary language. Nothing could not know what it was because it was nothing, so it had to go out of itself and to find something. And the evil in the world comes from the highest level, because people who talk about God how do they explain evil? They say there is the good God and there is the devil. God is good, the devil is bad. But then how do you explain? Is God, why does God tolerate the devil? How do you explain this? That's the religious images. In truth, there is only God, and all the evils, whether you call this evil or them evil, all the evil come out of the primordial abyss, because in truth there is only God, and I identify with God and with being. I am only in relation to myself. That's the experience that I had in August 2018, when I realized that I was only, not as an empirical individual, but as a mind, because there is only one mind. We, so to speak, if I had to speak, we are only in relation to ourselves. There is only one of us, which is the mind of God. But the mind of God is separated into billions of pieces and into the entire universe. So this is difficult because I am trying to share truths of level 99, and I know that as of now no one can understand, because I know that God himself is a process which does not always understand himself. That's why there is tragedy into the very process of God, because God in his development fails to understand himself. But if you are watching this, Michael, what I am trying to share with you with my video is that the bad guys are not them, or them, or them, or them, or them. Real evil comes from these spheres. There is a reason why the whole world thinks that white nationalists are evil, because in truth they are. So that's the problem, because I have identified in my intellectual path with this process and eventually with this, but then I discovered that the truth of German nationalism was speculative Hegelian thinking, and Hegelian thinking is not one-sided. It includes the totality of being within itself. So I will conclude by saying the reason why I started again this channel at the end of February is because I talked about this experience in many of my videos. I went to church and I was awakened to my own truth, which I had forgotten. And I remembered what had happened to me in August 2018, namely that I know myself to be the consciousness of all reality, which I also understand that at this moment in time is something which is unintelligible. I cannot communicate this idea, although I tried. I've made more than 340 videos to try to communicate, but I have failed. But I have new method of communication, which means I understood this in August when I had my God experience, that all the conflicts in the world are my conflicts, all the wars are my wars, all the problems are my problems, and that I have to solve eventually all the conflicts of the world, because they are all the conflicts of my world. And I have tried to read the news over the past couple of months, the conflict in Ukraine. But I understood that I cannot solve all the world's problem just by myself as an individual empirical mind, that I need other parts of myself, like you, Michael, who are very enlightened, to help me solve my problems, but you are a part of me, which is very difficult to understand. And what I have been focusing upon is trying to awaken you, Michael, because in my previous video I said you are the king of objective spirit, namely all the realm of geopolitics and conflicts it is your realm, so to speak, as an empirical individual. I mean, as long as you experience yourself as an empirical singular individual, this is your realm. You are the most knowledgeable, and I, as an empirical individual, I am like everyone else, in the sense that my days last 24 hours. I have to sleep in order to remain mentally stable. So I work as long as I can all day, 12 hours or sometimes 14 hours a day. But eventually I will always be all alone, but I have to share my light and my knowledge as long as I can with others, so that the others might be able to use my own light against myself when I fall into the dark. Because, yeah, so, yeah, I tried to, I still have here, over the past, I have had a relatively stable mind. That's why I'm very calm and reassuring. Maybe in my videos I can speak calmly, but I know that eventually I will have a mental breakdown, because my mind contains all the contradictions of the entire world, and that's just too much for a simple empirical individual. So as an empirical individual, I will the pressure will simply be too important. That's why I'm trying to prepare myself, but it's very difficult. So I have to solve my own problems. I have, from an absolute standpoint, I have always been on my own. I have understood this. So I am the cause and the solution of all my problems. Yeah. So I will do what I can, and here again the same for you, Michael, or for anyone. That's what I can say. Try to keep calm as long as possible and trust speculative logic. And here, to illustrate, speculative logic is, from the ordinary point of view, is the absurdity. From an ordinary consciousness, speculative logic is absurd, but from a speculative point of view, speculative logic is the idea that an Iraqi, queer, British, cosmopolitan, Muslim, transgender, quantum theorist is the triumph of German thought, and a war between white Ukrainians and white Russians to prevent the re-emergence of German nationalism, because basically the Ukrainians want to join the EU, and the purpose of the EU is to eradicate, to erase white nationalism, and mostly German nationalism, forever, so to speak. So you have white Russians killing white Ukrainians to prevent the rise of white German nationalists, basically. So at first it seems completely absurd and nonsensical. It is only from a Hegelian perspective that all of this makes sense. And here I will speak honestly as long as I have a calm mind. Michael, you are in these spheres, and I am in these sphere. And the reason why we struggle, the reason why I struggle, it is to save, if it can be saved, this kind of person, because this is the reflection of the mind of God. This is what God wanted to see when He created the world, because God is beyond the categories. It's a process. Like this person says, that you are beyond male and female, beyond the genders. And if I had to be honest, if I could speak as the highest God, I'd say that this is what I wanted to see, and this is what all this process has enabled me to see, right? Because without an other, as Jacob says, without another, I would be nothing. And there have been moments in my life where I was tempted to be nothing, and maybe I will still have the temptation to return into the void and to erase everything, but I will end the video with honesty. When I discovered this person, this Iraqi queer transgender person, I felt joy and admiration and compassion and love and gratefulness. That's what I felt. So that's what I can say. And this would not be possible without all of this. So yeah. And yeah, that's what I had to say. That's what I had to say.